The talk of that game, of course, being Joe Girardi's overmanaging of the series,
Oh my goodness.
which, and as you might expect, I have a number to summarize it. During the 6 games of this playoffs, Girardi has used 29 different pitchers, not actual different pitchers, but he's called in 29 different guys to throw 22 innings.
It's pretty incredible. Bringing in the righty for the righty to face the righty was pretty special. And he immediately gives up.
But the best part is when you flash to the dugout and you see him with the giant binder of matchups, all color coded and everything, and that's what you see there. Terry Francona often has there's where his seat is. There's a little wall next to it, and he tapes the sort of matchups right next to it. So he doesn't have a giant binder. But is the game better? I mean, I don't want to make this some sort of overarching statement, but we hear so often about how in the olden days guys just pitched, and the managers just let the players play. I think this is one of those things that's getting blown a little bit out of proportion because it didn't work.
There's such thing as too much. I don't believe in managing with your gut. I don't believe in someone like what was his name? Grady Little?
Grady Little, I remember
just
him.
having a good feeling about Pedro going back in, or then just having a good feeling about Mike Timlin facing someone he had no business facing, or in that first game of 2003, Chad Fox, who went in to face Crawford, and Crawford was hitting 1,050 against Chad Fox in his career.
Which is good.
But no, I don't believe in that managing by your gut thing, and having a reason. Having a reason for any of your actions is always a good thing. There is such a thing, though, as overmanaging, and I do. You look at Girardi, and now I'm just completely speculating, but he does seem to think very highly of his own managing skills, and he would like you to know that he is very much in control of the team and in control of the game, and he has thought about every possible scenario, and he thought that Sevis' stuff was better in that particular situation, and he was going to let him pitch instead of the other righty, and when it blew up, he said he stood by his decision, as he should. He's the manager, but it doesn't make it any less ridiculous. I mean, that was maybe the most it's the most recent of his overmanagings. So it's the one that kind of shines brightest.
The thing that it made me think of, and this kind of goes to show how our views of managers are shaped by the talents of their teams. I remember last year when the jury was kind of still out on Girardi, and it still is, but there was a story early in the season that he banned candy from the Yankees clubhouse.
I thought that was last year.
I think it was last year.
Yeah, it was last year because they were professionals and they should watch their diet.
They should eat
you know what? They're also adults.
They should eat carrot sticks and celery. And he's got one of these track records where he's had some success. He was successful with a very young team in Florida, but Freddie Gonzalez has also been successful with a young team in Florida, and Girardi basically got run out of town.
It's very hard in your first year to take a team that was expected to lose 90 games, have them win in the mid-80s, and immediately get fired because of how ridiculous your demands are with ownership and with your superiors. And that's the weird thing to me, is that for someone who is so authoritative, he seems to have those bizarre run-ins. It's almost like an insecurity complex, which is just weird to me because he's so by the book, and remember he actually instituted briefly the facial hair rule in Florida too, because that's what he wanted, and the second he left, Hanley grows the goatee back, and no one really
But his season in New York last year, you want to say that they underachieved a little. They won 89 games and they didn't make the playoffs, but they were still a good team. But you look at the talent that even that team had last year. That was a good team. That was a playoff-worthy team, but
they had some injuries. But they
had issues.
They probably should have been at least closer to the Red Sox on the wild card than they were.
It's just it's funny to me how quickly our views of managers can change, because there's not a baseball manager does not have a whole lot of control as to what's happening on the field. It's not like a in football where you're changing personnel on every play, and there's so many intricacies to what you do. It's a pretty straightforward game, but there are guys that have this great rep, and then there are guys that have this terrible rep, and I guess that I'm just trying to figure out exactly, what kind of manager Girardi is. Do we think he's any good?
I don't think he's. I'm always sort of ranking manager, and my ranking managers, I don't really put them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I kind of put them in tiers, and I have in my upper tier, in no particular order, I have La Russa, Francona, Scioscia for all of his silliness. I still think Scioscia's a good manager.
Yep.
Bobby Cox. I don't think Girardi's anywhere near that. I think he is at best in the second tier with maybe even not, because I don't even think he's as good as someone like Lou Piniella, who has a proven track record for, again, prone to silly decisions and some strangeness, but you can't really deny nearly 20 years, and the only losing records were the 3 years were in Tampa. Yeah. I don't think he's at best in that second tier, and I'm saying that basically because he had Teixeira, Sabathia, and Burnett this year, and he just had a much better year because his players
talent.
were better.
That's
talent
that's not managing ability. And I mean, I guess in other sports, and not so much maybe in baseball, but in other sports, they often say if you've got a veteran team with proven talent and kind of big stars, this team could almost coach itself.
Yeah.
And you would think, looking at the Yankees roster, that this could be that type of team, a team that could kind of just not handle things on their own, but just by who they are and what roles they play would kind of just set it up for him. It would easily define how to use pitchers, how to, where to put guys, when to give guys rest. And if you're going to go over that and overanalyze that, then that's when you're going to shoot yourself in the foot.
And if you want to talk about messing up a pitcher's rest, how they managed to not overpitch Jabba Chamberlain and still leave him completely impotent for the playoffs is amazing.
I mean, we're taping this on Tuesday afternoon, and by the time it
they
comes
can still
out,
win the ALCS.
a lot of this will have come out. But the Yankees are pretty clearly the best team. The Angels are a very good team, but they go to Anaheim with a 2-0 lead. They lose the game. They lose game 3 in odd circumstances, not necessarily on Girardi. I'm not going to go that far. But then all of a sudden you come back with CC Sabathia on short rest in game 4. You've completely taxed your bullpen, putting yourself in a pretty odd spot. And then all of a sudden you've got A.J. Burnett, who's not a good road pitcher and who has shown that sort of, mental hiccup capacity in game 5. And you've put yourself in a position to go back to New York down 3-2 when you're pretty clearly the best team. They're pretty evenly matched teams, but I kind of feel like we're at a point where if New York loses this series, it's almost has to be on Girardi, which is hard because he's not playing the games. No. But
a good manager doesn't have much of a difference. A bad manager will lose games, though, and I think that's how you measure managers: is how many games do they cost you. And I have to think Francona could not have cost the Red Sox very many games in the last 4 or 5 years. Girardi, though, we can point to instances where he has actually cost the Yankees the best chance to win.
I'm glad we talked about this so long, because now we don't really have to talk about the NLCS, which, as a closet Dodgers fan, really just filled me with rage and tears last night.
And my Pedro fanboydom was through the roof.
I can believe that.
Watching him just mow them down for 7 innings, that was beautiful. The best 89-mile-an-hour fastball I've ever seen.
We've just seen so many examples in this postseason, whether it be, Papelbon and the Red Sox, whether it be Houston Street in Colorado, Brad Lidge, the significance the significance of having a strong bullpen and having a strong closer, which is funny because it's the most volatile thing you can have on a baseball team.
Yeah.
Relief talent is not consistent year to year. Even if you bring back the same guys, you're not necessarily going to get, the same quality because it's such a small sample size.
The year Chicago won the World Series, they had journeyman pitcher, they had a rookie closer and journeyman relievers, just all Dustin Hermanson and Cliff Boley all happen to have the best year of their lives.
And Tampa Bay last year, the same thing. It's the mystery. It's why they play the games, Nick and Tim.
That's why baseball is such a great sport.